What's up, Badger fans? Let's talk season expectations with Brian Smith. What's some potential win-loss records for this team? Looking at the schedule, thinking about the quarterback spot, how good could we be? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today. You'll get $200 off your first bet of $5 if it wins. That's $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we got Brian Smith coming on. He is the Locked On Recruiting Insider. He is Locked On's ultimate go-to guy for what's coming up down the pipeline. And also, he's the only guy on this channel that's batting 1,000 on Wisconsin win-loss predictions after nailing last year's win-loss prediction. Brian, we're going to put you on the spot again. Looking at the schedule, I know we were talking about it a little beforehand. What do you think this team – what do you think is likely this team win-loss-wise?
I think Vegas is right on the mark, 6-6, 7-5. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, like your good grief. It's third, fourth games or Bama and Southern Cal.
Yeah,
that's meaty. I mean, that's a full plate there, bro. I mean, they just don't have the easy wins on this schedule. There's no Indiana. They do get Purdue at home, but like Rutgers is decent again. Northwestern's always a pain. There's no game other than the first two that you're like, okay, they're just going to win. The last 10 games are all winnable except for like one or two maybe, but every one of them there's a chance of a loss. It's hard to see them winning more than 7 games. It's just very difficult from start to finish. Oregon being on the back end is not very friendly either.
Yeah. Well, what's the floor here? Do you think this team – do you think they could go a 5-7? Is that possible? 4-8 even?
If you lose your quarterback, anything's possible. So just full disclosure, I don't think I have heard very good things, and I don't think you have either from our pre-conversation before the show. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they have good line play, and they have a very good coaching staff. I just think it's going to be hard to run some of the things that they would really like to run defensively because they're just not there yet recruiting. It's going to be year 3, year 4. I know Badger fans do not want to hear that. It'll be minimum year 3 because the stuff they really want to run, they don't have the right players. They don't. And they're just starting to get, like, they got some DBs they liked, et cetera, in this class. But you want to win with juniors and seniors. That never changes. So I think it's kind of hard. And this year, the schedule, like, again, Oregon's on the back end. You got Bama and SC at the front. If you have any injury problems at any spot you're thin, like corner or receiver, you just become very predictable and it's easy to attack you. So I'm very concerned that could happen. And then you could say, okay, 5-7 is possible. But they're not going to get out coached. They're not going to beat themselves. They're not going to lose on special teams. That's why I think they could still win 7 or 8 games. They could win some close games. Could they beat somebody like an Oregon at home or something? Yeah, they certainly could. But I just don't think if you look at the schedule that you can say there's any doubt. There's like 4 teams that have better talent than them right out the gate. And you're not going to win every close game on top of that. Mm-hmm. So Bama, they're not more talented. Oregon, definitely not more talented. SC, not more talented. You know, that's 3 losses pretty much right out the gate. And then there's a couple others too. Penn State, I don't trust at all. I don't think Franklin's a very good coach, but it's at Wisconsin. They've got more talent. How do you overcome that if you struggle early, like especially if they get beat bad but in at least one of the 2 games between SC and Bama? How do they respond to that? That's probably my biggest question because after the SC game, they got Purdue at home. You should win that game, but are you mentally locked in if you get your butt kicked by SC the weekend before? I have no idea.
Let me ask you this. Of those 4, I think there's like 4, and you mentioned the 4 like premium marquee games, right? It's Oregon, it's USC, Penn State, Bama. Which of those 4 do you feel best about the Badgers winning? And which of those 4 are you like, yeah, they have no chance?
Bama normally would be, but their roster is so hodgepodge with all the things they've got going on, and they might have more portal because the 16th and 30th of this month, portal's opened up. I would say Oregon's the most likely loss, to be honest with you, because it's late in the year. They have far more depth than what Wisconsin does, and it's a good program. and they've got a quarterback that's like a 6th-year senior. That's hard, man. He's really good. So that would be the one, and then Alabama, and then SC. Penn State, again, I do not trust. They just have more talent. They can't throw the ball for the life of them. So until otherwise proven, and I know they got a quarterback with a ton of talent, but until otherwise proven, they're the enigma of the Big Ten. So after that, like Iowa on the road, that's always a battle.
Yeah.
You've got the Wisconsin-Minnesota game is almost exact same. Between those two games, there might not be 60 points scored. You've got to find a way to start scoring points. That's the thing. Like, they can't have grinded out games every week when it's not one of those big four if they're going to win more than 6. They got to be able to find a way to score. That's the age of college football. And I know that's why they brought in the coordinator. They did. Now, can they do it now? I need to see those receivers make plays that I haven't seen for me to feel better about it.
I have a couple more questions on this one because obviously the Badgers moved on from Paul Chryst for basically winning 7 games. I mean, 7, 8 games, right? Not raising the ceiling, losing to all the bigger name programs. If in year 2, Wisconsin once again wins 7 games under Luke Fickell, fans are going to get restless. Should they get restless?
I would not, but that's because I know what they've done, and I look at it from a big picture, take in all the information. How many fans really do that, or are they make an emotional cry?
You're talking about fans, right?
Yeah. We know that it's rhetorical. It's rhetorical.
Yes.
Well, the quarterback sucks. The head coach needs to be fired. Those are the 2 things all fans say after games. It is garbage. People that have the least knowledge are the loudest on Twitter, being drunk in the parking lot, and just idiots in my life in general that I deal with. That's not different for any fan base. Coaches need to get their players in, and it is a long process. If you want to bitch at the Wisconsin administration for not taking more transfers and not using NIL more. I'm sorry, it's just true. That's the only way it's going to get expedited. Wisconsin is not in a very happy spot for recruiting. So if you don't use the portal to its full advantage, it's going to be very slow like a tortoise. It'll be year 4, year 5 before they really get everything completely rolling, which is, I know, the last thing Badger fans want to hear, but year 3 is when it'll start getting going at all. They don't have the speed they need outside the numbers. They can't run an up-tempo offense. Who are they throwing it to? Name a receiver right now at Wisconsin that LSU, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Michigan would want. Name one.
Maybe Will Pauling, who was pretty good in the slot last year. But your point is very well taken. You have to kind of stretch.
And he's a slot. Everybody's got a slot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
A 6'2", 200-pound guy that the NFL draft combine is going to invite.
Well, I didn't know you needed a 6'2" guy. Where am I going to
Well, I mean, like, that guy that is just, I'm going to take it off your head, even if you cover me, has 0 to do with coaching. Kirby's best line recently, he said, players beat coaching 9 out of 10 times. And that's a guy that's an elite coach saying that. It took a lot of guts. I give him credit for that. But he said that's why we recruit so much. But he's also in the state of Georgia. It's an idiot can recruit somebody to Athens. It's not very hard. So they've got to get a few more guys outside the numbers. You're 1 player away from changing your offense. That's the good news. And that's why I brought up the portal. If they get a guy in the portal this spring or whenever he actually signs, just because it's open, then it's not when you got to sign him, that can change their offense. They just need one guy that can go a 6 foot. Like when Will Fuller played at Notre Dame, he was soaking wet, $170, but nobody could stay in front of him. He was a 4-3 guy. If they find some guy like that, it's at a D3 school, and they turn him into change your offense, then we could talk about 7-8 wins a little easier. They don't have anything because right now everybody's going to suffocate you, play man coverage outside or play pretty tight and force you to try to make tough throws against contested DBs up in your face. I don't think they're going to beat good teams that can play press coverage. That's been their MO forever. Why would I change my opinion? And again, that's why I think they're a 6-7 win team. You have to be able to beat press, force teams to back off and open up running lanes. Could you imagine with their offensive line, what they do historically, if they had a couple extra receivers over the last 15 years? I mean, oh my God, they'd have scored 40 points a game even against quality competition because then they could have picked their poison. They just haven't had enough of those guys. It doesn't have to be Al Toon, but it's got to be somebody good. Al was a great player. But
great Wisconsin name drop, by the way. Old school Badger fans name. The younger ones may not, but his younger son went to Wisconsin too. Nick Toon went to Wisconsin as well as 4-star receiver.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's a great name drop. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back. I want to ping Brian really quickly on Tyler Van Dyke and then get into a couple 2025 prospects that the Badgers are in on. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. It's the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. Number one sports book. It's what we use on the Locked On Network. If you want to put a little money on Wisconsin's over-under this year, I might even put Brian on the spot after this break and ask him, make him take the over-under on this. 6.5 is the win total for Wisconsin. Are you taking 7 and more, or do you think it could be 5 or less? 6 or less, sorry. So you can do that on FanDuel, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, future spreads, parlays, whatever you want to do. And a ton of sports action going on right now. Final Four coming up, baseball starting, NBA playoffs are going to be coming up. There's futures in other sports as well. It is a great place to do it. Please do it responsibly. But FanDuel.com/lockedon. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your Saturdays more, your weekends more, your evenings more. Make your sports a little bit more. All right, let's bring Brian back in. I do want to just ask you, right, 6.5. Would you take the over-under right now, knowing that is an incredibly tough question to answer in spring?
I would go over just because I trust Fickell in general. I think it'll be a slow climb because of the things I mentioned in the first segment, but he's a good coach. I just think when push comes to shove and you look at the end of his tenure at Wisconsin, whenever that comes, games decided by 7 points or less, he's going to win more than his fair share. He'll win 65% of those games. And that's the difference. I don't see any reason not to think that he's going to struggle. Like, why would he struggle all of a sudden? They did that when they were at Cincinnati. They're going to do it again at Wisconsin. It'll just be a little bit slower climb than they probably like. But games like Northwestern, Iowa, Minnesota, those are 3 to 10 point games pretty much every year. They'll find a way to get it. And maybe it's running game, maybe it's a turnover, whatever, but they'll figure it out on game day.
I think you would agree 8 wins this year would be a great season, a great step forward. Is 7 wins a successful season if they lose all the 4 tough games and maybe they don't look super competitive in those games? Because I think losses are, if you fight with Oregon, right? If you fight with Penn State, if you get knocked around in those 4 games, but kind of win the rest on the schedule, is that a successful year?
Not really. I mean, like, especially Penn State, unless they take a leap we don't know about, like, they didn't get a first down against it's either Michigan or Ohio State. I think Ohio State until the last minute of the game on the 3rd down. They were 0 for 15. Like, that's almost impossible.
Yeah, I remember that game well.
that was like watching paint dry. If there was ever a time to use that expression, they were god-awful. You can't get blown out at home by Penn State. That one I'll say. Oregon defensively, I think, is going to absolutely suffocate Wisconsin. They got so many defensive linemen. They got all the players I bitch about Wisconsin not getting, they're going to Oregon. That's just true. And they get them from all over the place. And it's NIL induced, the whole 9. All the things the Badger fans want to complain about, it's Oregon taking advantage of it. But that's why they're winning.
Nice to see them in Madison for at least one Saturday.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, that'll be a great atmosphere, by the way. That'll be really cool. I assume they're going to play them out there the year after or whatever. But that's a game that you maybe can win. But again, teams with more depth, you want to play them early in the year before you guys get banged up. They're playing them at the back end. Terrible timing, in my opinion. Oregon's used to crappy weather because Oregon's got crappy weather too. So the cold probably won't factor in as much as you might like UCLA. Or like, they need to flip the SC game with the Oregon game.
Right.
100%. SC sees those November games in the Midwest. You look at 10 years from now, they will not do well in those games. They will not. Like, they won't play Notre Dame. They play them every year past the middle of October in the Midwest. Right. I guarantee you there's a lot of backdoor jockeying for stuff like that for those, because those kids are not going to adapt to it. They're not. So, but Wisconsin, they could win one of those games. Like, you never know with Alabama. If they have some more problems, like, we still don't even know who the hell Alabama's quarterback is. It's just they've got enough depth in the trenches and stuff. It's just hard to run the ball on them. And Kalen DeBoer is obviously a really good coach. So I think going to the national title game with Washington proves that. But otherwise, man, I mean, the schedule is just really, really freaking hard. Anything above 7 wins, I mean, you should take it. You just kind of hope you're competitive in some of those games. The Oregon one's the one I'm worried about the most.
Yeah, they're kind of a wagon. Let's talk Rukeem Stroud. Let's talk 2025 cornerback out of Tampa, Florida kid, very fast, 5'11", about 160. 247 has a 4-star cornerback, offers from Texas A&M, Penn State. Really nice little offer list. What's your thoughts on Rukeem Stroud?
That's a kid I've seen for a couple of years. I knew about him as he was coming up. I know one of the coaches at Tech. He can just flat out go. We knew he was going to be a Power 5 kid. Knew about that about 2 years ago. He's gotten taller. He was only about 5'8" or so when I first met him, but he's gotten bigger and the speed hasn't gone anywhere. He will take it the other direction really, really quick. I was watching some of his film again today. I've seen him play 7-on-7 several times. Could play man, could play zone. Definitely a kid that needs to play outside. He's not going to be in the nickel taking on tight ends and stuff, but he's a traditional, flat out, I can run with anybody corner. Wisconsin needs more of that, and, they're getting better corners now. It's more D-line you got to be concerned about. But if you get kids like Stroud all the time with the coaching staff that Wisconsin has on defense, it'll work out pretty good. And I think that's a kid that could use a change of scenery, get out of Tampa anyway, so that'd be a good match.
Well, it feels like great ball skills, too. That's something that Wisconsin really hasn't had. He'll go up and snatch the ball and then, to your point, take it the other way.
Florida kids don't want to intercept the pass. They expect to do an end zone dance as soon as they see the ball in the air. It's a different mentality.
Yeah, he brings jets for sure. And he also, a little on the slender side, but kind of long frame. He feels like a player who's going to get in a college weight room, put on 20 pounds, and potentially
100%. Yeah, he'll be $180, $185 before he leaves.
Well, offers from Texas A&M, Penn State. Any idea on a timeline on where his recruitment might go?
I think he's going to leave the state. He's a kid that needs a change of scenery from what he's grown up with and everything. He could go anywhere. Florida kids are very fickle, but this is a kid that wants an opportunity to play and kind of prove himself. He was overlooked a little bit because he wasn't the biggest guy, but his speed's so good. He's continued to rise in the rankings and stuff. But now he's kind of like, I want to prove it somewhere. I bet he goes to a program where he can play early. Like Wisconsin, he could probably play pretty early. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he picked there, but I think he's good enough to play a 4-4 state wherever. It's just, they need to redshirt him. Like, probably needs a year to get bigger in the weight room, like you mentioned, maybe play a little special teams. But year 2, after he's like $175, he started at an SEC school or Big Ten school, wouldn't surprise me.
What's that? Because I know Florida has a lot of different areas for football, different types of programs. What's the competition he's playing? Like, how good is that? How strong is that? Yeah.
He's playing Tampa Public League and playing Jesuit, and he's playing every game he's in. There's a kid on the other team's playing college football. Yeah, Tampa's no joke. It's the real deal.
Well, I think that's important because we watch Huddle Field. Like I say, we, but other fans do. Badger fans do. I do. And when you see a kid like that pull away and not get caught and outrun ankles,
and he's doing it in Tampa.
Yeah, it checks.
100%.
Last question here, because I'm curious, and I'm putting you on the spot with this, so this might not be completely fair, but from what you remember with Emilio Agard's recruitment last year, Xavier Lucas, is this a cornerback in their tier? Same type of talent? They're different players for sure, but
oh yeah, way different. He's very unique because it's really up to Rukeem. If he works on the field, I'm not worried. Does he take care of everything off the field? And that includes the weight room and the diet. A guy I used to know a long time ago, Benny Serrato at Notre Dame, he said, the kids in Florida eat like crap and they run track. That's Rukeem to a T. Some of the kids Notre Dame used to get back in the 80s and early 90s, they panned out. It was either yay or nay. Florida kids are boom or bust. If he's motivated, that's an NFL player possibly because he's going to run sub 4.4 at the combine. But does he have everything in order to do it? Fickell in that system, they took some Florida kids, some kids randomly, inner city kids all over when he was at Cincinnati. Some made it, some didn't. His upside's through the roof. So he's got a little more risk, but his upside's so high. Like Ogard, I'll be shocked if he doesn't at least start at Wisconsin. But Rakeem's got a higher ceiling because he's so fast. Like he's ridiculous fast. Just depends on what he does with it.
I love it. That's an awesome answer. Great insight as always from Brian. All right, we're going to take one more quick break, come back, and we're going to talk about two defensive line prospects that visited Wisconsin. Get Brian's take on both those players. I know he likes talking defensive line and Wisconsin. We'll get into that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Amazon Fire TV. And listen, this is something I use all the time. I have this on all my TVs. I have the Amazon Fire Stick on my smart TVs. It is an incredible spot to get sports, all sorts of sports, baseball, basketball, college sports, March Madness. Plus you get other entertainment channels, gaming, cooking. I can't cook, but I watch cooking shows. Maybe someday I'll just like learn it through osmosis. I'll be able to become a cook too, because all the cooking shows I digest on my Amazon Fire Stick. So Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. It is the perfect sports destination. They've also launched Amazon Fire channels. Fire TV recently launched Fire TV channels, so you can get streaming content, including Locked On. You can get more of us. You can get more of Brian Smith on your Fire Stick. Who doesn't want a little bit more of that? So right now, if you want to learn more, if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you absolutely need to. It is fast, easy, simple, incredibly easy user interface, spot for all your sports. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Let's get Brian back in here. Locked On's Recruiting Insider, LinkedIn's Recruiting Insider as well. All right, two more defense linemen I want to talk about. Brad Fitzgibbon, I want to start there. 3-star defense lineman coming out of the Chicago area, 6'4", 280. Pretty solid, kind of mid-tier offer list, ASU, Wisconsin, Iowa, those type of schools. What do you think of Fitzgibbon?
Tough kid, and he's got a little bit more athleticism than like when you just see him stand there, you think, oh, this kid might want to be an offensive lineman. He's got a little more twitch than I thought. I don't think he's a frontline starter per se, but he could help you on the interior, and he's a strong kid. There's something to work with, and again, worst case scenario, you put him on the offensive line, but he could be a backup nose guard or defensive tackle for you, being in a rotation, and he's going to play his butt off. So, yeah, I like him. He'll get after it, and he can get in the backfield. Only question is, I don't know how big he's going to get. Is he a nose? Is he D-tackle? That'll take care of itself in time.
Yeah, you do like sometimes getting the player that he's pretty yoked up already. Like, you're not going to have to project a ton of weight onto him. And how is he going to carry?
Not really.
Yeah.
He's 275 anyway, I would guess, just looking at his frame. He could be your backup nose guard at 6'3", 300, 6'4", 300. That's not all bad. You got to have some of those guys.
Do you think he's slotted inside, or could he play some like strong side?
Only in goal line. He's not twitchy enough to get off that edge. At that size, though, you can use him in packages. And if you want, and Wisconsin will do this, go 3-man line and play him at the power end for certain situations when they run one of their gazillion blitz packages. It looks vanilla when the play is getting ready to start, but then all hell breaks loose when guys are stunning and twisting. And then you got a 285-pound grown man running at your quarterback scot-free. That's the whole thing. It's about everybody playing together. So he could do that, but in a traditional 4-3, he's probably better at nose or at 3-tech, if I was to guess.
One of the things watching his film, I was curious on this one, last thing on Fitzgibbon, he does have some hand usage that's pretty good, able to kind of slide off blockers, get around people. He looks like he's been coached decently in that Chicago area. Yeah,
he wasn't a kid that was shy with the moves. Different rip, different, everybody powers when you're that big because you can run over guys. But he would dip, he would stay low, he'd keep his feet moving. He's had some motivational guys that probably aren't very friendly in his life as D-line coaches at some point. That's okay. Yeah. A lot of D-line coaches aren't the nicest guys that I've been, befriending in my life, but they're good at what they do. This kid's been coached, so he'll be a little more advanced than some of the other young men that come into Wisconsin's program.
I want to touch on Mason Mayne as well. He's a 3-star defensive lineman, came up, visited Wisconsin. 6'3", 275, coming out of the Michigan area. He has a Northwestern offer, Air Force offer. So not the highest offer list, decent size, visited Wisconsin. Thoughts on Mason Mayne?
Future offensive lineman is my guess, and he's a damn good one. I was surprised, but the only problem with him is he plays in one of those option offenses. It's harder to grade his film. I don't see him as a D lineman unless they just want him to be purely a back. There's no way he's a frontline starter as a D lineman. But, man, he gets after it. That kid is super physical. I just don't think he's got the twitch to play D-line at the power 4 level, Big Ten level. Big body, it's the kind of kid that you look at in 3 years from now, school like Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin makes their starting center, and he's all Big Ten. That's okay, too. So not everybody's going to be a future defensive tackle. Good player, man.
You think center or guard, or too early?
Depends on what you want to do offensively. If he's smart enough, center's about what's above the shoulder. He could play it physically, but can you make checks? That's the first thing. If you're not making all the checks and understanding all these line calls, that's why Fickell does what he does with his defense. They're hoping that guy's not very good and somebody's coming scot-free. It's about protecting your quarterback and your running back from taking on guys that are very large running scot-free. And that's why center's so hard, man. But his frame fits it. He's 6'3"-ish, 275, 280. Yeah, he could play center.
He is Brian Smith. That is Locked On's Recruiting Insider, also brought to you by LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. Brian, as always, my friend, thank you so much. I try to talk a defense lineman every time you come on here. Eventually, they're going to land one or two of them. The last one we talked about, Torrin Petaway, decommitted and went to the Gophers. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, man. That's so bad.
That was the in-state defensive lineman we talked about. You kind of liked him. 6'5", 240. Yeah, he is now a Gopher commit, so that's amazing.
Welcome to Wisconsin recruiting in a nutshell right there, brother.
Doggone it. He is Brian Smith. We are always smarter because you're here. Thank you so much, Brian. And for everybody tuning in, thank you for listening. As always, we will talk to you tomorrow on Wisconsin, and we'll see you later.